Hi all, it's Night Fear, and I have come on to do my April wrap-up, which includes what I read for the readathon, the magical readathon, the O.W.L.S Readathon. Yeah, let's see how many times I can mess that up, guys. It's the magical O.W.L.S Readathon. I think that's how it is, and it was hosted by Book Roast. So let's just go ahead and get into this. So I read 12 books. Yes, I said 12, amazingly enough, books for this month. Unfortunately, I missed out. There were 12 prompts in the readathon, and I did all but one. And so one of the books I read wasn't for the readathon. I'm going to go ahead and share that. And I'm bringing my Kindle. So the only book I didn't read that was for the readathon, it was Scythe by Neil Shusterman. It was an awesome book. If you guys haven't read Scythe yet, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I haven't read Thunderhead, but that is actually on the TBR, or my TBR for May, which I will hopefully get done tomorrow or the next day. So basically what Scythe is about is it's about this world that they have conquered death. There's no death by disease. There's no death by accident. There is no death. So they had to come up with a way, because of course people were still having kids. So the world can only sustain so many. So they had to find a way to kill people, but they don't call it killing, they call it gleaning. And so the Scythes were kind of born, I guess you'd say. And basically to become a Scythe, you have to be apprenticed by somebody that is already a Scythe. And so these two teenagers, it's a boy and a girl, their names are Citra and Rowan. Actually, I'm not going to spoil that part, but they run into a Scythe Faraday, and Scythe Faraday decides to make them into his apprentices, and that he is going to pick one at the end to become a Scythe. And so the book is about their journey into becoming a Scythe, but then a lot of other stuff happens, and there's political stuff, even though when they created it, it shouldn't have been, but it ends up being political stuff, and there's a bad Scythe, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But you don't even get that, or don't only get that. It kind of reminds me of Animal Farm in a way, where you can just read the story and get the story, or you can kind of see the messages in the story. And Scythe has got a lot of that, especially when it comes to, like, imagine, okay, and also I forgot to tell you that when you get so old, you can turn back your life, so you can become young again in your 20s. And then, live it again, and then turn back the time to 20. And you can do that until you get gleaned. But, so, in it, there's examples of art before and after. There's, poetry books, stuff like that before and after, because things seem to have lost their purpose. Because if you think about it, if you don't really, because the chances of that you're going to die are very small, because there just is. And so you're just going to live forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. So there's no urgency. That's the word. There's no urgency to your life. And so this book made me think a lot about that. So I'm anxious to get to Thunderhead and see what other messages that are in that, because I have a feeling there is, because of the way Scythe ended, and it had an amazing ending, that I really want to get into Thunderhead. But I'm starting another readathon, so I have to wait a little bit. I have to get a few of those books down that I want to read for that before I read that. But I highly, highly, highly recommend Scythe. Okay, enough about that. Oh yes, and I gave Scythe 5 stars. I actually had a few 5-star books, but Scythe was one of them. I had 3. I had 3 5-star books this month. Okay, so for the readathon. Let me start going over the books for the readathon. The first one was for Ancient Runes. And I had to read one with a symbol on the cover, and I picked Perception because it had, and I read this on my Kindle, because it had the infinity symbol. This was an okay book. It was a story that the rich people, you could modify your genes and become almost perfect, and it was kind of the society of haves and have-nots, and this girl meets this guy, a have with a and a have-not, and it's the story of her trying to find out who she really is. It was okay. I kept hoping it was going to be more, and I really didn't like the ending. And I'm not sure I'm going to read the next book. Oh yeah, and this is by Lee Strauss, sorry. So, and I gave this a 3. It just, like I said, I mean, there's nothing really, really terribly wrong with it. I just wanted something a little bit more. So, but that was that. That was for Ancient Runes. The second challenge was Arithmancy, and that was a number on the book or in the title, and I picked 18 Years by Madison Kuhn. And yes, originally I picked The Fifth Wave, but as I was getting closer to the end of the month, this was also on my TBR, but as I was getting close, The Fifth Wave is kind of a big book, and I was running out of time, and so this one's smaller, so I just decided to pick this one. This is actually a poetry book, and I was kind of enjoying it at first, but then it was like things became repetitive. The phrases she used, it was like, every other poem, it was the same thing over and over, and it just didn't, I didn't enjoy it. Like I said, if it had been probably, a third of the size, with a third of as many poems, I probably would have enjoyed it more, because I wouldn't have gotten that repetitiveness. But it was just like she was trying to say the same thing over and over. And I also gave this book a 3. But, I mean, some other people might like it. But I just didn't. Okay? And sorry, guys. I have sinus problems when the weather does this weird up and down thing. And, like, when we got up this morning, I think it was upper 30s or lower 40s. And it got to almost 80 today. So, yeah, my sinuses are still... So, if I'm a little sniffly, I'm sorry, but I needed to get this filmed. Okay. So, the third one is Astronomy. And this one I also read... Alright, come on. I also read on my Kindle. Sorry. Let me see here. This one. See, I had this all set up, and for some reason it went back to the... Hold on, give me just a second. But anyway, this was Planet Earth by Jennifer and Christopher Matucci. Or Matuki. Something like that. And it was a box set. I only read the first book for this readathon. Oh, and it was for Astronomy, and you had to read a sci-fi novel. I know I kind of read sci-fi a little, but not as much as other things. But anyway, this it was mostly about two sisters. One was 16, I think, or 17, and the other one was 8. And basically, the planet... Okay, so the planet had a war. They were at a war, and there was... oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, guys. Hold on. Give me a minute to try to think of the word. Wasn't nuclear. It was chemical. But a chemical was used, and the people that were, in the bunkers and everything, they were fine, but everybody that was above the earth, they got sick, they got mutated and everything else, so that when the people that were in the bunkers came up, the people that were mutated, which were called Earthmen, URTH men, attacked the normal humans. And so the girls are part of the normal humans, and their dad unfortunately passes away. Their mom does too, and it does tell you how, and I'm not going to spoil that, because she does, the older sister does dream about it. And I don't remember their names, because this was actually one that I read at the beginning of the time. Oh, and of course I'm not going to be able to find it. But anyway, it's... Okay, her sister's name is June, the younger one. And it's written in first person. But it's really good, and it tells about how the older sister's trying to take care of the younger sister, and, you know, she feels responsible. And it's good. I mean, it's good. There's obviously, I think there's 6 or 7. Of course, in this box set, there's only 3. But there are quite a few other books in this series. So it was a good starting and explaining. And there's also creatures. The animals have also been mutated, and there's some really kind of cool creatures too. So, I mean, it's a really good book. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So, I definitely would recommend it, especially if you like sci-fi and dystopian books, because I've gotten into dystopian books lately. So, yeah. Okay. Not too many more on the Kindle, guys, so sorry about that. Okay, so the next one is The Care of Magical Creatures, and it either has to have a magical creature on the cover or in the book. And I picked Acorna by Anne McCaffrey and Margaret Ball. This is an awesome book. This is a reread. I have read this before. It's the only one. It is a series, and this is the only one I own of the series right now. I'm going to try to get the rest of these. But basically, it's about these miners. They mine asteroids. So it's kind of a fantasy, kind of a sci-fi. It's kind of a combination of the two. But so these miners, they find her as a baby, and they've never seen anything like her. She is she's described pretty much like this. If you see, she has a little unicorn horn, and she actually has magical unicorn type powers. And so they try to raise her as best as they can, and people end up wanting her, and then it's a story of them trying to find out where she belongs, who her people are, and them trying to stay out of trouble. And it's really good, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, I have read it before. I did give it a 4. I'm not sure why I gave it a 5. I guess some of it was predictable a little bit, maybe, and so I just didn't feel like I could give it a 5, even though I love it and I would recommend it, and I actually would read it again. Oh my goodness, excuse me, guys. So yeah, it was really good. So if you haven't read this book, excuse me, or read anything else by Anne McCaffrey, I definitely recommend her books. I do enjoy her writing. Her Dragon Riders of Pern series is really good also. Okay, this video is going to be taking forever, huh? Alright, the 5th one is Charms, and Charms was a fantasy book. And for this, I read Once Upon a Dream, A Twisted Tale. And this one was a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. Now, I was real excited at the beginning of this book. I was really enjoying it. And then, I'm not really going to go into it too much. But basically, it's like, what if Sleeping Beauty never woke up and the prince ends up falling asleep? And that, I'm not spoiling anything that's actually told in the, in the synopsis. So, it was really cool. There was a different twist on it, and I was going, oh, this is really cool. And then I got this feeling. And then I'm like, uh-oh. And I was thinking, I bet it's going to be like this. And then that's exactly what happened. And it just went downhill from there. And I just didn't enjoy this book at all. I mean, it took forever. Once the twist was realized, it just took forever for it to get anywhere. It took forever for it took forever. And I just did not like this book. And, I mean, some of you guys might, but I just didn't. I just didn't enjoy it. The good things are, though, is this would be great for a young person. There isn't any sex. There isn't any cussing. There isn't any of that. So for that, you know, it would be really good. Or some of the other retellings I've read, I wouldn't let my daughter read, but I'd let her read this one. But I didn't care for it. And I did give it a 3. So, I don't know. I don't give a lot of 2s, guys, and I don't know if I'd ever give a 1. It would have to be pretty bad for me to ever give a book a 1. Okay. The next one is Defense Against the Dark Arts, and this is a book with a secret society or secret club. And I read Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. Oh, I'm so sorry. Once Upon a Dream was by Liz Braswell. Sorry, I forgot. Totally forgot. Most of you guys should know what Twilight is about. I mean, the movies. This is obviously the movie cover. And it's funny because my oldest son got me to read these books when right after they came out. And he's like, Mom, you've got to read these books. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I went and got the first one because I was like, and loved it. It's the first book I can remember crying like at the time I was working at a hotel, and I was reading this book because I was working midnight shift. I was the night auditor. And I was reading this book and I was crying. I was bawling. And so the next day I had to go find the other books. And this isn't the copy because my books got lost. And so here comes Christopher. Sorry, guys. But anyway, so it got lost. And see, here, guys. Say hi, Christopher. Say hi. You just say hi? No. And so I just loved these books. And then I watched the movies, and I haven't read this book since. I've watched the movie several times, but I hadn't reread the book. So my thoughts were remembering the movie, not remembering the book. And I didn't realize that until I reread the book. I loved it again. I gave this book a 5 again. I loved it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a cheesy romantic person. I don't know. But I loved it. I know some of you guys are going to be like, what? But I can't help it. I'm a Twilight fan. If there's a support group out there, guys, let me know. Okay. The next one was Divination. And that's the one, read a book with a prophecy. And I chose The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I have never read this. Well, now I have, but I had never read these books before. It was awesome. I enjoyed this book. I mean, the writing is a little, I don't know. It's a YA book. And it's weird how some YA books kind of have that writing and some not as much. This one did. So that I gave it a 4. But I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to go on with the series. I do have all of the Percy Jackson books, and I have all of the Heroes of Olympus books also, so I can go ahead and read those straight through, kind of, because I have other books I want to read too. So we're going to just, kind of disperse these in there. But it was really good, and so basically it's about... Oh, let's see what to tell. Percy Jackson, he finds out he isn't who he thought he was. He finds out that he has a special father, and he has to go on a quest. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And it's pretty good and ended good, and yeah, it was a good book. I really enjoyed it. Okay, the next one is Herbology. And for that one, it was, you had to have a nature word in the title. I did at first have, what did I pick for this one at first? I had, The Demon in the Trees by Ben Sanders. I just decided I didn't want to read that one. I'm actually going to read it this month. So I chose, and this one, it was a library book, so it's already gone. So it's The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This book was amazing. I gave it a 5. The cool thing about this book is that you do not ever get the person's name. It's written in first person. You never get his name. It starts the book, he's coming back from a funeral. You don't know who died. And he goes down to where his old house was, where he lived with his sister and his parents. And the house isn't there anymore. So then he goes down this lane, and he kind of remembers the lane, and he goes down the end of it, and he's looking at this house, and he suddenly remembers who lives there, and he's like, I wonder if anybody's home. And so he knocks on the door, and an old lady answers, and then he starts to remember things. And then he goes to the back of the house to this pond. And then he remembers that the little girl that used to live there used to call this her ocean. And then it just goes from there. And it's got kind of witchcraft in it. It's got, I don't know if you'd really call her a demon, but she's kind of a demon. And it's really good. And it's got a good ending. Kind of a strange ending, but it's just got a really good ending. It's the first Neil Gaiman book that I have ever read, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I would really, really recommend it. And like I said, I did give it a 5. Okay, so the next one that we were supposed to read was History of Magic, and that was supposed to be a historical fiction. I was going to read The Clan of the Cave Bear for that, and I just ran out of time. So that's the one that I didn't get to read. So when she has her next one, she's going to have the Newts. I am not going to be able to do anything with the History of Magic, which makes me sad, but you know, what can you do? So then the next one was Muggle Studies, and you had to read a nonfiction book. I read The Diary of Anne Frank. It's taken me 2 months to get through this book. And I mean, this book is little, but I think I've read it, this will be the 3rd time through, I think. And I have watched several documentaries about Anne Frank, and different other things about her. And so I think it's just too much, and I knew what was going to happen, and I knew too much of this, and I really struggled this time. And so I gave it a 4. I was debating about giving it a 3, but I don't think that's fair, because it was just me. If this has been the first time I was reading it through, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot better. But this is still a very important book. And for anybody that doesn't think that we need to be careful of how we treat others, of how we treat people with differences, they need to read this book and think about what happened to her. And it does tell you at the end of the book what happened. Oh, if you don't know what happened, this is the story of Anne Frank. It's her actual diary that they found. She and her family, it was her sister, her mother, and her father, were hidden during World War II. They chose, for some reason, her dad figured it out that things were going bad and that they needed to hide. And so he took his family and they hid. They hid in the upstairs of where he worked. And they hid with another family, and then another gentleman joined them. And it's just, they ended up getting caught at the very end. And it's very sad and very stupid. I hate using that word, but I mean, why in the world would you do that to other people? Okay, anyway, time to move on. But you guys, if you haven't read this book or don't know anything about Anne Frank, you really need to read and learn and think about it. All right, so the next one is potions, and you needed to read something having to deal with an alchemist or alchemy, and I read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Sorry. And I gave this a 4. And it's about a shepherd boy who is doing pretty well off. He's doing pretty good for himself. And he is visited by a king. And the king tells him that he needs to go on a journey, that he can have riches, that he needs to go find his treasure. And the boy thinks about it and decides, and he goes on this adventure. And he learns a lot. And as he's learning, you're learning. And it's just a really good book. And it's like I said, it's one of those books where as you're reading, you're learning, and it kind of makes you think about things. And I really enjoyed it. I know there are some people that didn't enjoy it, but I enjoyed it. And the last book for the month, I know, guys, finally, right? I'm so sorry. Is we had to read a book of transfiguration, either a book about transforming or with a cat on the cover. I chose Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King, and this is really a cool book because it does have cool illustrations, and obviously this is about a werewolf, and it's told through the whole entire year of this as this werewolf terrorizes this town. And it's pretty good. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's Stephen King. And I gave it a 4. So, but anyway, so that is the 12 books, plus the ones on the Kindle, that I read for this month. And I really enjoyed reading, and I can't believe I actually read 12 books. So let me know if you guys have read any of these books. I really would recommend Scythe, guys. Really. I know a lot of people that I have recommended this to are kind of like, but it's a hyped book. But there's a reason. There's actually a true and real reason why this one is a hyped book. So, but you guys be kind to each other, and I will talk to you later.